Hey everyone, Nick here. Welcome to No Ideas Media. When it comes to genetically engineered food and the people who are critical of it, there's a lingering question that comes up whenever it's discussed. In fact, this question kind of feels like the center of this whole anti-GMO argument. If the stuff is so safe, then why won't they label it? What are they trying to hide exactly? Well, recently the US Department of Agriculture has kind of made that question moot by enacting a national bioengineered food disclosure standard at the end of December 2018. So, mandatory labeling of genetically engineered foods is a thing now. Foods containing bioengineered ingredients over the threshold will have to display this badge. So, I mean, we can finally stop fighting about this labeling GMOs thing, right? So, bioengineered. It's not a term we've heard a lot in the media. GMO, GE, Frankenfood, demon spawn of Monsanto and Beelzebub. Okay, those are terms we're a little more familiar with. So bioengineered foods, or BE foods, are defined as foods that contain genetic material that's been modified through in vitro recombinant DNA techniques, with the caveat that the change made to the DNA can't be done through normal breeding and can't be found anywhere in nature. So bioengineered adds yet another term to the lexicon describing this kind of work. And I mean, the simple fact that another term was required to sew together a bunch of already not quite there terms, I think that shows that our food terminology in this area is pretty messy to begin with. I mean, that's the part that gets commentators like myself all grumbly when we get going about food labels. From a consumer's perspective, labels are already like a confusing disaster of a mess. It feels like a step in the wrong direction to ask consumers to learn yet another term when they're already feeling really confused. And this bears out in 2017 research by Label Insight's Shoppers Trend Study, where 48% of shoppers feel like they are not at all informed about a product even after reading the label. I think part of the reason for this is the rise in popularity of absence labeling. The non-GMO project label, if we're talking about GMO-related food labels, is probably my least favorite label out there. And honestly, if I had to choose between a non-GMO label or a contains GMO label, you bet I'd choose the contains GMO label. But why? Because it makes so much more sense to label what a container actually contains than to label all the things that it doesn't contain. Because once you open that door, once you go down that road, you get products like non-GMO project verified sea salt. Salt being a mineral that has no DNA, thus can never be GMO. So the label tells you nothing about what is in the product, adding to that feeling consumers have about not knowing anything after reading the label. This absence label, it sucks for consumers. And I do wish that it didn't exist, but let's be pragmatic. It does exist, and it makes a ton of money, and it's not going anywhere, regardless of what's best for consumers. Fact is, that same study also shows that 49% of consumers adhere to a particular diet or health-related eating program, and 44% of consumers say food allergies or sensitivities play into their food choices. Now, regardless of what's actually true, for a lot of those consumers, GMO, biotech, is an unhealthy thing they're avoiding, or a food sensitivity that bugs them. That's their reality. For those consumers, the non-GMO project label works. They read it like a non-poison label. They already don't buy anything without that guarantee because, I mean, it could have GMO. Thing is, it's those same people who've been yelling for a GMO label, for this BE label. And I mean, they've been demanding it for so long that the non-GMO project stepped up and filled that demand in a stupider way with an absence label. It sucks, but it works for anti-GMO consumers and it's not going anywhere. So why do we need a BE foods label? The people who want to avoid that stuff already have a label that helps them do so. The BE label will just go on products that they already didn't buy because they weren't non-GMO project verified. And this is my point. While I don't really like the BE foods label because it has a sloppy definition, I don't think it's going to have a negative impact for products that bear it because of the non-GMO project label and its popularity. Is the BE food label good for consumers? I don't think so, but again, being realistic, food labeling is already so terrible that adding one more terrible label to the terrible pile doesn't really raise the overall level of terribleness that much. And again, this "if it's so safe, why can't you label it" argument, as I said before, it's kind of the center of a lot of anti-GMO rhetoric. So maybe calling that bluff, putting a label on, maybe it kind of takes the power out of that rhetoric. Now, I know it's a short jump from if it's so safe, why can't you label it, to if it's so safe, why does it need a label? But the consumers that think that way, their needs are being met by a different label entirely. So in triage terms, probably too far gone already. Maybe this BE label will appear one day on a product that a consumer has depended on for years. Maybe that consumer will be more curious than afraid. Maybe they'll look into what biotech ingredients are in that product and why. Maybe it won't be such a bad thing, or maybe it will, or maybe it just doesn't matter at all. Welcome to food labeling. Thanks for watching.